The text arrived at 9:47 p.m., right as I was settling into my recliner with a cold beer and the evening news. Amanda's message glowed on my phone screen. "Helping Dad with taxes will be late. Don't wait up." I stared at those words, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach tighten. March had barely started, and tax season was still weeks away. More importantly, Frank had always been meticulous about his finances, the kind of guy who finished his taxes by February 1st every year without fail. "My name's Nate, and I've been married to Amanda for 12 years. I run a moving company here in Millfield, a Rust Belt town that pretends it's classier than it actually is. Amanda sells real estate, or at least that's what she calls spending her days showing overpriced houses to people who can't afford them. The thing is, I'm not stupid. I dropped out of college to box professionally for a few years before my left shoulder gave out, but that doesn't mean I can't add 2 and 2. Amanda's late nights had become as regular as clockwork over the past 3 months. Always business meetings, always with her partner Chad, always running until well past midnight. I grabbed my keys and drove over to Frank's place. The old man was surprised to see me at his door, wearing his bathrobe and slippers. "Nate, what brings you by so late?" "Just wanted to see if you needed help with those taxes," Amanda mentioned. Frank's weathered face creased into a frown. "Taxes? Son, I finished those weeks ago. Filed them online on January 30th, same as every year." That knot in my stomach exploded into something hot and acidic. I kept my voice steady. "Mind if I come in for a beer?" We sat in his kitchen, nursing bottles of Budweiser while the local news droned in the background. Frank kept glancing at me, clearly sensing something was wrong, but too polite to pry. I checked my watch, 10:30 p.m. "So, Frank, you haven't seen Amanda tonight?" "Not since Sunday dinner." "Why?" The front door opened with Amanda's familiar jingle of keys. She walked into the kitchen, still in her business attire, looking fresh as a daisy for someone who'd supposedly been wrestling with tax forms all evening. Her smile froze when she saw me sitting at her father's table. "Oh, hi, honey. What are you doing here?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I gestured toward Frank with my beer bottle. "Thought I'd help with those taxes you mentioned. You know how much I love numbers." Amanda's face went through several interesting color changes. "Taxes?" Frank looked between us, confusion written all over his features. "Amanda, what taxes are you talking about? I told Nate I finished mine weeks ago." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Amanda opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I could practically see the gears grinding in her head, searching for some explanation that wouldn't sound completely ridiculous. "I meant I was helping him organize receipts for next year." "At 10:30 at night?" Frank raised an eyebrow. "In March?" I stood up, draining my beer. "Well, this has been enlightening. Frank, thanks for the drink. Amanda, I'll see you at home." I walked past her without another word, catching a whiff of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. Something expensive and cloying. The kind of scent Chad wore to make up for his complete lack of personality. The drive home gave me time to think. 12 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Amanda lying to my face about helping her father with taxes that didn't exist, while she was off doing whatever she was doing with Chad Morrison, her business partner, and the biggest tool in Millfield's admittedly impressive collection of tools. Chad was everything I wasn't. College-educated, drove a leased BMW, wore suits that cost more than most people made in a month. He had that slick charm that worked on certain types of women, the kind who mistook arrogance for confidence and condescension for sophistication. I pulled into our driveway and sat in my truck for a moment, staring at our modest 2-story house. We'd bought it 8 years ago, back when Amanda still pretended to care about building a life together. Now it felt like a stage set. All appearance and no substance. My phone buzzed. Another text from Amanda. "Boom. Dad was confused. We can talk when I get home." I typed back, "Take your time. I'm sure you have more organizing to do." Inside, I poured myself a whiskey and settled back into my chair. The house felt different now, like someone had shifted all the furniture just slightly off-center. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. Amanda came home 20 minutes later, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. She appeared in the living room doorway, still beautiful at 37, but wearing that calculating expression I'd learned to recognize over the years. "Nate, we need to talk. I'm listening." She perched on the edge of the couch, maintaining distance. "I know how that looked tonight, but it's not what you think." "What do I think, Amanda?" "You think I was lying about helping Dad." I took a sip of whiskey, savoring the burn. "Were you?" It's complicated. Try me. I may have dropped out of college, but I can usually follow simple explanations. Her jaw tightened at the dig. I was working late with Chad on the Henderson property. We lost track of time, and I panicked when I realized how late it was. I didn't want you to worry. So you told me you were helping your father with taxes that don't exist. I said it was complicated. I leaned forward. No, Amanda, it's actually pretty simple. You lied. The question is why you felt the need to lie about working with Chad. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. I don't like your tone. And I don't like being treated like an idiot. We stared at each other across the room, 12 years of marriage crystallizing into this moment of perfect clarity. She was guilty of something, and we both knew it. The only question was how far down this rabbit hole went. I'm going to bed, she announced. Good idea. You must be exhausted from all that organizing. She paused at the doorway. Don't be like this, Nate. Like what? Curious about where my wife actually spends her evenings? Amanda left without answering, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. I finished my whiskey in the growing silence, already planning my next move. The briar patch smelled like spilled beer and broken dreams, perfect for thinking. I found Eli in our usual booth, nursing whiskey. The crowd was light, mostly regulars who treated the place like a second home. Moira slid my usual beer across the table before I even sat. You look like someone who's had a revelation. Something like that. I took a long drink. Moira, what do you know about Brent Colby? Her eyebrows rose. The Tesla guy? Thinks he's God's gift to entrepreneurship? He's been spreading his charm around town. His wife doesn't mind, or maybe she doesn't know. His wife? News to me. Miranda Colby. Works at the library. They moved here 6 months ago. Moira leaned in, voice quieter. Funny thing about charm. It usually works both ways. After she left, Eli leaned in. So, what's the situation? I showed him photos. His expression darkened. How long? 3 months, maybe longer. Texts, photos, videos. She's lying about everything. Eli handed back my phone. Oh, what's your goal here? Divorce, confrontation, public humiliation? I want her to understand what it feels like to have your life turned upside down by someone you trust. I want consequences. Revenge is a dangerous game. So is betrayal. Eli studied me, probably remembering the soldier I once was. What do you need? Information, weaknesses, patterns. I leaned back. Jenna thinks she's smarter than everyone, but every structure has weak points. And Brent? Brent's a narcissist. He can't resist bragging. He's predictable. We mapped out a plan. Eli would dig into Brent's past. I'd focus on Jenna's patterns. One more thing, Eli said. Keep it legal. I'm not trying to fix my marriage. I'm trying to end it properly. Saturday morning, I put phase 1 into action. While Jenna went to her yoga class, I visited our phone provider. I need to add tracking to my wife's phone, I told the rep. She's having GPS issues. 20 minutes and a spousal consent form later, I had access to her location data. Next, I drove to Jenna's office building. I visited Marnie Chen, Jenna's CEO, under the pretense of checking the HVAC system. Is Jenna around? She took a personal day, Marnie said, sounding concerned. Has she been telling you she works weekends? No, just thought she was catching up on work. I lied smoothly. Afterward, I drove to Riverside Commons, where Brent lived. His Tesla was parked next to Jenna's weekend car. I parked across the street and called Dylan. I need you to do something for me. Okay. Go to 47 Elm Street, Riverside Commons. There's a silver Tesla. Leave this note on the windshield. Your wife called. She knows about Tuesday nights. Might want to check your rearview mirror. A concerned neighbor. Got it. While Dylan handled that, I went to the library to find Miranda. She was in the children's section, reading to a small group of kids. Afterward, I waited until the parents collected their children, then approached her. Miranda, right? I said. I'm Nick Callahan, Jenna's husband. Just wanted to introduce myself. She froze for a second. Oh, of course. It's nice to meet you. I believe you've met my wife before? I asked casually. Yes, we've met, she replied, looking uneasy. Really? She never mentioned you. I smiled. How do you two know each other? Through Brent. They work together sometimes. Work together? What kind of work? Maybe you should ask Jenna about that, she replied, glancing nervously around. I think I will. I smiled. It was nice meeting you, Miranda. Maybe we can all have dinner sometime. Her face turned pale. That would be nice. I walked away, already knowing that tonight The Colby household would have some very interesting conversations. Reggie looked exactly the same as he had 15 years ago, compact, muscular, with graying hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. His gym occupied the ground floor of an old brick building, complete with heavy bags, speed bags, and the permanent scent of sweat and determination. Need a favor, Reg? Name it. I told him about Amanda's affair, keeping my voice level and factual. Reggie listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. That's rough, brother. What do you need from me? Information. Chad Morrison drives a silver BMW, license plate. I pulled out a piece of paper. He and Amanda have been meeting at the Riverside Inn most Thursday nights. I need to know if there are other places, other times. Reggie nodded slowly. I know some people who know some people. Give me a day or two. Thanks, Reg. I owe you. You don't owe me anything. That's what friends are for. That evening, Amanda came home at 11:30, slightly disheveled and smelling like wine. She found me in the living room, reading a book. How was the presentation prep? I asked without looking up. Exhausting. Chad is such a perfectionist. Good thing you're patient with him. She kissed the top of my head, another perfunctory gesture, and headed upstairs. I'm going to shower and go to bed. Sweet dreams. I waited until I heard the shower running, then checked her purse again. New messages from Chad, already deleted, but I could see the notification history. 17 messages between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Either they were discussing the most complex real estate deal in history, or they were doing something that required a lot of coordination. Friday morning brought a breakthrough. Reggie called while I was loading the truck for our first move of the day. Got some interesting information about your boy Chad. I'm listening. Turns out he's got expensive tastes and a cash flow problem. Owes money to some people who don't like waiting for payment. Also, he's been seen at the Riverside Inn with more than just your wife. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? Seems Chad likes to spread his charm around. Your Amanda isn't his only extracurricular activity. I felt something hot and sharp twist in my chest. It was bad enough that Amanda was cheating, but knowing she was sharing Chad with other women added a layer of humiliation I hadn't expected. Who else? Lisa Brennan from Century 21, and possibly Janet Walsh from the bank. Guy's busier than a one-legged cat in a sandbox. I thanked Reggie and hung up, my mind racing. Amanda thought she was having a sophisticated affair with a successful businessman. In reality, she was just another entry in Chad's rotation of married women looking for excitement. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to Chad's office, a sleek building that housed several financial services companies. His BMW was in the parking lot, gleaming in the afternoon sun. I didn't go inside. Instead, I waited. At 4:30, Chad emerged with a woman I recognized as Lisa Brennan. They got into his car and drove to a coffee shop downtown, where they sat at a corner table for an hour, their conversation animated and intimate. I took pictures with my phone. Not great quality, but clear enough to show Chad with his hand covering Lisa's across the table. Clear enough to show her leaning in close, laughing at something he'd whispered. By the time I got home, I had a plan. Amanda was in the kitchen, preparing dinner and humming softly to herself. She seemed genuinely happy, which made what I was about to do feel both necessary and slightly cruel. How was your day? She asked, the same question she'd been asking for 12 years. Educational. Yours? Good. The Morrison presentation went well. We might actually get the listing. I sat down at the kitchen table, watching her move around our kitchen with practiced efficiency. Amanda, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you love me? The question hung in the air like smoke. Amanda stopped stirring whatever was in the pot and turned to look at me, her expression carefully neutral. That's an odd question. Is it? We've been married 12 years. Seems like a reasonable thing to wonder about. She set down her spoon and faced me fully. Of course I love you, Nate. Why would you ask that? Because I love you too, and I want to make sure we're both happy in this marriage. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Are you happy? I thought I was, but lately I've been wondering if we're growing apart. Amanda moved closer, sitting down across from me at the table. What makes you say that? We don't talk like we used to. You're working more hours, coming home later. Sometimes I feel like we're just roommates going through the motions. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was warm, familiar, and for a moment I almost forgot about the text messages and the cologne and the lies about tax preparation. Nate, I'm sorry if I've been distracted lately. Work has been crazy, and I know I haven't been the best wife recently. I don't need you to be the best wife. I just need you to be honest with me. Her hand tightened on mine. I am honest with you. Are you? We stared at each other across our kitchen table, and I could see her making calculations behind her eyes. How much did I know? How much could she safely admit? How much could she continue to deny? Yes, she said finally. I'm honest with you. I nodded and squeezed her hand. Good. That's all I needed to hear. That night, as Amanda slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and finalized my plan. She'd had 3 months to come clean, 3 months to choose our marriage over whatever she was doing with Chad. Instead, she'd chosen to lie to my face while holding my hand. Tomorrow, the games would begin. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. Amanda was up early, claiming she needed to show houses to a couple from out of town. She dressed carefully, too carefully for a routine showing, and spent extra time on her makeup. Will you be late again? I asked, watching her apply lipstick in the bathroom mirror. Probably not. These clients seem pretty decisive. Should be home by dinner. I nodded and kissed her cheek, tasting the waxy residue of her lipstick. Drive safe. After she left, I put my plan into motion. First stop, Frank's house. Amanda's father was in his garage, tinkering with an old motorcycle he'd been restoring for the past 5 years. Frank was a good man, straightforward, honest, and completely devoted to his daughter, which made what I was about to do particularly difficult. Nate, good to see you, son. Hand me that wrench, would you? I passed him the tool and watched him work for a moment. Frank, I need to tell you something, and it's not going to be easy to hear. He looked up from the motorcycle, grease smudged on his cheek. What's on your mind? I told him everything. The tax lie, the text messages, the meetings at the Riverside Inn. I showed him the photos I'd taken of Chad with Lisa Brennan. Frank listened in silence, his expression growing harder with each revelation. When I finished, he set down his wrench and wiped his hands on a rag. You're sure about this? I wish I wasn't. Frank was quiet for a long moment, staring at his half-restored motorcycle. What are you going to do? I'm going to give her a chance to tell the truth, but I need you to know what's really going on, in case she tries to spin this as me being paranoid or controlling. Amanda's my daughter, Nate, but I raised her to be better than this. He looked at me with sad eyes. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Maybe not, but I'm sorry anyway. He picked up his wrench again. What do you need from me? Just remember this conversation if Amanda comes to you with a different version of events. Frank nodded grimly. I'll remember. My next stop was Reggie's gym. I found him training a young heavyweight who moved like a dancer despite his size. Reggie called a break when he saw me come in. You look like a man with a plan, he observed. I need another favor. Name it. I told him what I needed. Reggie listened, asked a few clarifying questions, then grinned. Brother, you've got a devious mind. I like it. Can you make it happen? Give me 2 hours. I spent those 2 hours driving around Millfield, thinking about 12 years of marriage and wondering when things had started going wrong. Had there been signs I'd missed? Moments when I could have fought harder for us? Or had Amanda simply decided I wasn't enough anymore? At 3 p.m., Reggie called. It's done. Perfect. Thanks, Reg. Anytime. This should be interesting. Amanda came home at 6:30, looking pleased with herself. Great news. The Hendersons accepted our offer. Chad and I are going to celebrate tonight. Celebrate how? Dinner at Marconi's. Just the team, you understand? Business celebration. I nodded. Of course. You've worked hard for this. She seemed surprised by my response. You don't mind? Why would I mind? You deserve to celebrate. Amanda kissed me, a real kiss this time, and headed upstairs to change. You're the best husband a girl could ask for. I try. An hour later, she left for her business celebration in a dress that didn't exactly scream business. I waited 30 minutes, then drove to Marconi's. The restaurant was busy, filled with couples and families. I spotted Amanda and Chad at a corner table, sharing a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my truck payment. I didn't approach. Instead, I sat at the bar, watching them. They were all over each other, hands touching, leaning in, laughing at private jokes. Not business partners, lovers. At 8:30, they left together. I followed, keeping my distance, as Chad's BMW headed toward the Riverside Inn. They parked in the back lot, away from the streetlights, and walked into the hotel like it was a regular thing. I sat in my truck, the certainty settling over me. No more doubt. Amanda was having an affair. Time for phase 2. I drove home and called the Riverside Inn. Riverside Inn, this is Jennifer. How can I help you? I'm trying to reach my wife. Amanda Patterson and Chad Morrison are staying tonight. Can you confirm? I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have anyone under those names. Could you check under Morrison? I'm sorry, sir. No one by that name is registered either. Maybe they're using a different name for privacy. Room 237? Sorry, I can't give out that information. Understood. Thanks for your help. I hung up, satisfied. They were there, just not under their real names. Phase 3 needed patience. I settled into my recliner, beer in hand, waiting for Amanda to come home with her excuse. She walked in at 11:45, smelling like wine and expensive cologne. Hi, honey. How was your evening? Quiet. How was the celebration? Nice. Good food, good company. Chad's really pleased with how the deal worked out. I bet he is. I stretched. I'm heading to bed. You coming? In a minute. I need to check my emails first. I kissed her forehead. Don't work too late. Upstairs, I lay awake, planning my next move. Amanda thought she was playing chess while I played checkers. Tomorrow, she'd learn I'd been playing chess all along. Sunday morning felt mocking, crisp autumn air, but no optimism. Amanda was up early again, preparing listing materials for the Henderson property. More work? I asked. The paperwork never ends. Chad and I need to get everything ready for closing. Of course you do. She caught the tone in my voice. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just observing that you and Chad seem to have a lot of personal work. Amanda narrowed her eyes. He's my business partner, Nate. That's how partnerships work. I'm sure it is. She finished gathering papers and stood to leave. I'll be back this afternoon. Take your time. I know how thorough you are. After she left, I made coffee and sat, waiting for the right moment. At 10 a.m., I called Frank. Morning, son. How are you holding up? I'm about to find out. Is the offer still open? What offer? To help me get to the truth. Frank was quiet for a moment. What do you need me to do? I explained my plan. He listened, then sighed. She's my daughter, Nate, but she's made her choice. I'll make the call. Thanks, Frank. I owe you. At 10:30, Frank called Amanda. I couldn't hear her side, but I could imagine her surprise when Frank asked her to come over immediately to help with an urgent tax issue. Emergency? Frank said, his voice just the right amount of confusion. Well, yes. I suppose you could call it that. I found some papers I missed, and I'm worried I made mistakes on my return. Could you come over? I know you're busy, but I'm really concerned. Amanda would have to come. She couldn't risk Frank discovering she'd lied about helping with his taxes. She arrived 20 minutes later, looking annoyed. I was waiting in the kitchen, sitting at the same table where everything had started. Nate, what are you doing here? Helping Frank with his taxes. You know, the ones you've been working on for months. Amanda's face changed color. Dad, what's this about? Frank emerged from the living room with a manila folder. Sit down, Amanda. We need to talk. Dad, I don't have time for... Sit down. The authority in Frank's voice made Amanda sink into a chair. She looked between her father and me, calculating how much trouble she was in. Frank spread the contents of the folder on the table, bank statements, tax returns, receipts. These are my tax documents, Amanda. Completed on January 30th, filed electronically the same day, refund deposited on February 15th. He pointed to each document. So imagine my confusion when Nate told me you've been helping me with taxes that don't exist. Amanda opened and closed her mouth. Dad, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You always were creative. Frank's voice was cold. The question is whether your explanation will be true this time. This time? Amanda's voice rose. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned forward. It means we know about Chad, Amanda. We know about the Riverside Inn, the fake business meetings, the whole thing. The color drained from Amanda's face. You've been spying on me? I've been trying to understand why my wife needs to lie about where she spends her evenings. That's not... I haven't been... Thursday night, Riverside Inn, room registered under a fake name. Saturday night, dinner at Marconi's, followed by another trip to the same hotel. I kept my voice level, factual. Should I continue? Amanda looked at her father, then back at me, trapped between two men who'd always loved her and were now staring at her with disappointment and anger. It's not what you think, she said finally. Frank laughed bitterly. What do we think, Amanda? You think I'm having an affair? Are you? I asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Amanda stared at me, and I could see her weighing her options. Deny everything and hope we didn't have proof? Admit to some lesser version of the truth? Or finally tell the whole story? Yes, she whispered. The admission hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd known it was coming. Hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way that all my surveillance and suspicion hadn't. Frank slumped in his chair like someone had let the air out of him. "Oh, Amanda." "Dad, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Frank's voice was sharp. "Explain how you've been lying to your husband and your father for months? Explain how you've been using me as an alibi for your affair?" "It's not that simple," I found my voice. "Then make it simple, Amanda. Tell us how this happened." She took a shaky breath. "Chad and I, we connected. He understands me in ways that you don't, Nate." "What ways?" "He appreciates my ambition. He doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more out of life." "More than what?" "More than this?" She gestured around Frank's modest kitchen. "More than moving furniture and fixing old dressers and being satisfied with just getting by." The words hit their target perfectly. Every insecurity I'd ever had about not being good enough for Amanda, every moment I'd felt inadequate compared to her college-educated friends, every time I'd wondered if she was settling for me, it all crystallized into a sharp, clean pain. "So, this is about money?" "It's about potential, Nate. It's about building something bigger than what we have." "And Chad helps you build that?" Amanda's chin lifted defiantly. "Yes, he does." Frank stood up abruptly. "Get out. Dad, get out of my house. Now." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Frank's voice was quiet but final. "You threw away a good marriage and a good man because you wanted something shinier. You lied to everyone who loved you. You used me as your alibi. I understand exactly who you are, Amanda, and I don't want you in my house right now." Amanda looked at me desperately. "Nate, please. We can work this out. It doesn't have to end our marriage." I stood up slowly, feeling older than my 38 years. "Amanda, you've been lying to me for months. You've been sleeping with another man while coming home to my bed. You just told me I'm not good enough for you, that I don't understand your ambition." I paused, letting the words sink in. "What exactly do you think we can work out?" "I made a mistake." "No. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or burning dinner. This was a choice. You chose Chad over me, over us, over our marriage. You chose to lie instead of talking to me about whatever was missing in your life." Tears were streaming down Amanda's face now. "I do love you, Nate. I never stopped loving you." "But you love him more?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I walked to the door, then turned back. "I'll be staying at Reggie's for a few days. When you're ready to talk about lawyers and dividing property, you know how to reach me." "Nate, wait!" But I was already walking out the door, leaving Amanda alone with her father and the wreckage of 12 years of marriage. The next few days passed in a blur of legal consultations, uncomfortable conversations, and the strange logistics of dismantling a shared life. I stayed at Reggie's apartment above the gym, sleeping on a couch that had seen better decades and waking up to the sound of heavy bags being pummeled by early morning fighters. "You're handling this better than I expected," Reggie observed on Wednesday morning, watching me nurse my third cup of coffee. "Am I? I feel like I'm falling apart." "Nah, brother. Falling apart looks different. You're processing. There's a difference." Amanda had called 17 times since Sunday, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails that I couldn't bring myself to listen to. She'd also sent a stream of text messages that started with apologies and gradually shifted to anger when I didn't respond. "We need to talk like adults," read the latest message. "You can't just disappear." I could, actually, but Reggie was right. Eventually, I'd have to face the practical realities of divorce. Property division, paperwork, the awkward dance of extracting yourself from someone else's life. On Thursday, I finally went home. The house felt different, smaller somehow. Amanda's car was in the driveway, and I could see her moving around in the kitchen through the window. I sat in my truck for a moment, gathering courage, then walked to the front door of what had been our home. Amanda met me in the hallway, looking like she hadn't slept since Sunday. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair unwashed, and she was wearing the old college sweatshirt she usually reserved for cleaning days. "Thank God you're here," she said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "We need to talk." "Yes, we do." "Nate, I've been thinking about everything, and I know we can fix this." "Amanda, stop." She stopped mid-sentence, looking at me with desperate hope. "I didn't come here to reconcile. I came here to get some clothes and discuss practical matters." The hope in her eyes flickered and died. "Practical matters?" "The house, the cars, bank accounts, divorce logistics." "You want a divorce?" The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "Amanda, you've been having an affair for months. You told me I'm not good enough for you. What did you think was going to happen?" I thought you'd fight for us. I did fight for us, for 12 years. I fought by working 60-hour weeks to help pay for this house. I fought by supporting your career even when it meant eating dinner alone most nights. I fought by loving you even when you made it clear I wasn't sophisticated enough for your taste. Amanda sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. That's not fair. Fair? I sat down across from her, maintaining distance. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been talking to me about whatever was missing in our marriage instead of finding it with Chad. Fair would have been asking for counseling or separation instead of lying about tax preparation. I was scared. Of what? Of hurting you. Of ending our marriage. So instead you decided to have an affair while staying married to me? How is that supposed to work long-term, Amanda? She didn't have an answer, which told me everything. Amanda hadn't been thinking long-term. She'd been enjoying the security of our marriage while seeking excitement elsewhere. What about Chad? I asked. What about him? Are you planning to be with him now that this is out in the open? Amanda's face crumpled. Chad says he needs time to think. His wife found out about us, and she's filing for divorce too. He says the situation is too complicated right now. I felt bitter satisfaction. So Chad's backing away now that there are consequences? It's not like that. What's it like, Amanda? She was quiet. He says we should wait until both divorces are final before we make any decisions. How convenient for Chad. He gets to explore his options while you wait around hoping he'll choose you. Don't be cruel, Nate. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. Chad's a player, Amanda. You're not his only affair partner. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? I showed her photos of Lisa Brennan and Janet Walsh, women Chad had been seeing too. Call Lisa Brennan. Ask her about her Thursday afternoon coffee dates with Chad. Amanda stared at the photos. He told me I was special. I'm sure he did. He told Lisa and Janet the same thing. She looked up at me, broken. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Yes, you have. Can you ever forgive me? I paused. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some things can't be fixed. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of 12 years pressing down on us. What happens now? She asked. Now we divide our life fairly and move on separately. I don't want to move on. I want to fix this. Amanda, look at me. I waited until she met my eyes. Do you love Chad? Yes, I think so. Then you can't fix this. You can't love two people at once. You made your choice when you started the affair. Now you have to live with the consequences. But what if Chad doesn't want me? That's not my problem anymore. The words came out harsher than I meant, but they were true. Amanda had gambled our marriage for a chance at something better with Chad. If it didn't work out, she'd have to figure it out without me. I stood up. I'm going to pack some clothes. We can discuss property division through lawyers. Nate, wait. She reached for my hand. I know I don't deserve it, but could we try counseling? No, Amanda, we can't. I pulled away and headed upstairs. I heard Amanda collapse on the couch, sobbing. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but I was learning to protect myself. As I packed, I realized I was finally thinking about my future, not hers. I was 38, financially stable, and free from a marriage that suffocated me. It wasn't the future I planned, but it was mine, and that felt liberating. When I came downstairs with my suitcase, Amanda was still on the couch, staring at the photos. I really am an idiot, aren't I? She said, tears in her eyes. You're human. Humans make mistakes. Big mistakes. Sometimes. Do you hate me? I thought for a moment. No, I'm angry, hurt, disappointed. But I don't hate you. She nodded. Thank you. I walked out for the last time as Amanda's husband, closing the door behind me. The afternoon sun was bright and warm, and the air smelled like new possibilities. It wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the one I needed. And sometimes that has to be enough.